Hello everybody, and welcome back to Steven's Fight Show. Alright, so Derrick Lewis, everyone's favorite UFC heavyweight, is returning this Saturday against Sergey Spivak, and it's a must-win situation for the Black Beast. It's no secret that Derrick Lewis has had some tough outings in the last year or so, and it's been a bit of a downward spiral for him ever since he fought Ciryl Gane. Prior to the Ciryl Gane fight, Derrick Lewis went on a tear where he was knocking fools out left, right, and center. The Curtis Blaydes fight was so gassed because he slept him out cold, and it was crazy. And ever since then, he's only won one fight, which was against Chris Daukaus. And it was a good comeback performance after getting picked apart by Ciryl Gane, but for some reason, I felt like he wasn't really back. Like, don't get me wrong, like he was back with a knockout, but he wasn't really back like that. I feel like Chris Daukaus didn't present the same capabilities that the other top heavyweights in the game did. Don't get me wrong, the dude moves well on his feet, he's got power behind his strikes, and he's got good setups, but I don't think he was more elite than guys like Ciryl Gane, Tom Aspinall, Curtis Blaydes, or even Tai Tuivasa. He didn't even get to showcase his skills against anybody that was in the top 10 prior to the Derrick Lewis fight. And in that fight, Derrick Lewis didn't look the best, but he doesn't have to be. I mean, most knockouts in UFC history should tell you if this man has the ability to shut your lights out or not. So this is why I wish Derrick Lewis had at least another fight against somebody maybe ranked somewhere in between 7 through 10. I felt like he needed to take his return step by step instead of going from Chris Daukaus to Tai Tuivasa. I was nervous for Derrick Lewis in that fight because I knew that if Derrick Lewis touches Tuivasa's chin, he was going to knock him out cold. But at the same time, I knew that the same was going to happen to him if Tuivasa was to land on him. And during the time of that fight, Tai Tuivasa was dangerous. He was on a tear where he was knocking fools out too for like 4 or 5 straight fights. And although he might be seen as a brawler, he's not exactly that. Like, yes, his plan is to go toe-to-toe with you, but he's at least somewhat technical to execute what he wants to do. And everybody and their mama knew that someone in that Derrick Lewis versus Tai Tuivasa fight was going to go down. And unfortunately, it was Derrick Lewis. My man's got a taste of what he was doing to everybody else. He was out cold with a vicious elbow. Like, thinking about it now, like he fell face first into the canvas. Like, that's honestly nuts. So since that moment, he's been trying to gain some momentum to try to get back into the title picture, but he got finished again by Sergey Pavlovich. Okay, well, technically he didn't because Dan Miragliotta, he messed up. That was 100% an early stoppage, and again, an unfortunate situation for Derrick Lewis. So now we're here in this fight with him and Sergey Spivak, and this is a good credible fight for Derrick Lewis to get a win, turn back the clock, and hopefully push for another title run, because if he loses here, it's going to be hard for him to continue to compete. Because if you look at it from his perspective, you're in a situation where you've now lost 3 fights and you're approaching father time. Derrick Lewis is 37 years old. He doesn't have a lot of time to take losses at this stage in his career. Or maybe he can if he can still maintain the power, but the point is, heavyweights are only getting better. It's going to be tough for him to try to keep up with these guys that are improving at 31 and he's pushing 40. Derrick Lewis isn't the most technical heavyweight in the world. There are many heavyweights in the world that are more technical than him. In fact, he's a bit limited in his style of fighting. He's a big dude who really doesn't move well on his feet, throws only single strikes, doesn't really look to wrestle or grapple very often, and has cardio issues as well because apparently he won't pick up the phone if a title fight is 5 rounds. But what I will say is that he has underrated counterpunching and timing. His ability to catch you coming in is so impressive for being a big guy. But the way he fights is all centered around his greatest asset, which is power. Like, it's not complicated at all. When he has you up against the fence, that's where he's most dangerous. But he could be dangerous for about 2 or 3 seconds on his back foot. When he's at the center of the octagon, or if you can manage to put him on the back foot, then straight up, he's not as good. Only if you can avoid the initial counter. If he doesn't land while catching you coming in, and you can catch him after he throws his shot, then instantly you're going to have more success than him. He's very susceptible to leg kicks, but his main source of defense is to time the right hand down the middle. He doesn't usually kick too often, but when he does, they're usually leg kicks. Every now and then he'll sneak in a jumping switch kick to throw his opponent off, but generally he throws his hands more. Ciryl Gane showed that if you stay patient, disciplined, and agile, then you can potentially pick him apart. Obviously, it's a lot easier said than done, and it's the most reasonable game plan since it's not always a good idea to exchange with a power puncher. Unless you've got power as well, like Pavlovich. He did a good job of putting Derrick Lewis on the back foot as soon as the fight started, and he was putting it on him, which was dangerous because he could have gone down as well, but he got it done against Derrick Lewis. That's not going to work for everyone who decides to fight Derrick Lewis. As far as this fight, this is a good opportunity for Derrick Lewis, but the man standing across from him is a polar bear. Literally. In Spivak's last fight, he had a dominant display of grappling where he was landing takedowns, throwing up submission attempts, landing ground and pound strikes, and controlling his opponent up against the fence. Essentially, he was ragdolling Augusto Sakai. And if I'm being honest with you guys, before Spivak's last fight, I didn't really know too much about him. From everything I've seen so far, it looks like he's got pretty good hands where he has a thudding jab and a big right hand as well. And one of the things I noticed from him is that he's got good entries. The way he was setting up takedowns in his last fight was beautiful. He likes to shoot after throwing the overhand, which is a classic move from MMA fighters with a wrestling background. He's also good at feinting to get his opponents to react, and that's when he'll level change. That hip throw that's kind of like a trip is lethal from him as well. It looks like he has a diverse submission game and that he likes to start fast. But some things to keep in mind are that Spivak has not fought in a 5-round fight, or at least I don't think so. I could be wrong, but I believe this is his first time. And with the way that he fights and the pace that he fights at, he could exert a lot of energy early on in this fight, especially if he decides to start fast. Derrick Lewis, on the other hand, isn't really a 5-round fighter either, but he's had multiple 5-round fights before and he understands how to adapt to it. But for me, I want to know how Derrick is going to be able to deal with the storm that Spivak will bring, whether it comes early or not. We know what happens when Derrick brings the storm, but in his last 2 fights when Tuivasa brought the fight to him, he got stopped. Pavlovich started to tee off on him quickly, and although he wasn't out cold, he was definitely bothered. So if you think about a guy who's willing to come forward to throw punches to land and set up takedowns, if you're Derrick, you're going to have to land early. You could be more offensive to let your hands go, but if you don't gain your respect, then you're going to be in a bad position, and I don't see Derrick doing that. Because now if Spivak starts wrestling and he gets Derrick down, he's going to drain him. I think Spivak is the much better grappler in this fight, and I don't think Derrick is going to be able to get Spivak off of him. Of course, you can't completely count out Derrick because anybody that possesses the kind of power that he has will never completely be out of the fight. And it could be a case where he's giving up rounds and losing the fight on the scorecards, but finds a way to find Spivak's chin and knocks him out cold. Wouldn't that be something? It's probably the most likely outcome for him to win. He almost has to win like how he won against Curtis Blades. Establish your power, timing, and respect early on in order to extinguish the fire from Spivak. But if Spivak can avoid the counter and starts landing 2, 3, or 4 strikes plus a takedown, it's going to be exhausting for Derrick to deal with. So with my official prediction, even though I love Derrick Lewis, and Mans is one of the funniest people in the UFC, and I'm going to be rooting for him, but I'm going to keep it a buck, I think Spivak is going to win by stoppage. I think early on, Derrick is going to try to do what he always does, which is stay on the back foot and land power punches while baiting Spivak to come in. But I don't see him being successful with that. He might hurt Spivak, but I don't see him stopping him. I think Spivak is going to be aware of the power, and he's going to take his time to set up his entries and not rush to make sure he doesn't run into a bomb. And as the fight goes on, Spivak is probably going to increase the pace where he's going to throw more punches, shoot for more takedowns, and he's going to pressure Derrick into the cage, and that's where I see him having his way. And on the ground, I see him landing some big ground and pound shots, and eventually he'll lock in a submission that Derrick can't get out of. I think Spivak is going to employ his IQ a lot, and his activity is going to wear Derrick down in the middle of the fight, and I see him tapping him out in the 4th round. This is what I think is going to happen, but I hope Derrick times an uppercut and we get a highlight reel KO, because that would just honestly be insane. I would love for Derrick to get a win here, but he's got a giant polar bear in Spivak to deal with. So hopefully Derrick can land and stop him, because if not, I think Spivak is going to get it done. And that is it, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to what I have to say, and let me know, who do you guys have winning the fight, Derrick Lewis or Sergey Spivak? Drop a comment and let me know in the comment section down below. Now, if you guys enjoy content that is related to combat sports, please drop a like on this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel down below. That would be greatly appreciated. Please head down to the description of this video to follow my Twitter and my fight blog as well. If you want more content relating to this one outside of YouTube, you can 100% follow my blog and my Twitter to stay further connected and tuned in. And other than that, it's been Steven, signing out. Peace!